Yeah, guys, Matthew here. Today, about an hour ago, Cephas, the Shadow Priest WoW dev, posted a blue post in regards to Shadow Priest changes for 8.1. Kind of the post we've all been waiting for, and it's here now. So I was going to quickly go through it and kind of give my opinions. I'll also, at the end, be discussing the Azerite Traits that came out a few days ago and just give my thoughts on those. But these are more important, so let's just start with this. So, next PTR build includes some changes to Shadow Priest with the following goals. Make Void Form matter more, make staying Void Form longer matter more, and give the player more agency over extended duration. And improve Shadow's defensive power and utility. Those sound good. Those are some issues that people were, raising for the last few months. So let's see what they're doing to address that. So, make Void Form matter more, up first. Moving into Spell for Azeroth, we consciously reduce the maximum power of Void Forms for the purpose of evening out Shadow's heavily backloaded Void Form cycle damage. This has some positive impacts, which you may be aware of. Mainly, this greatly reduces the harsh penalty for dropping out Void Form early. Common occurrence in any content outside of raids, including dungeons or questing. I think it happened in raids a lot more as well. It was actually a lot more frustrating in raids. As a lot of you know, ever since Timus Agaris, Shadow had a Void Form cycle where every minute, everything repeated. That damage was kind of bad for the first 30 to 35 seconds of that Void Form, and really kicked off for the last 20 or so seconds. And if anything happened that dropped you out before that, your damage suffered, especially if it happened at the wrong time. If it happened after you mind-bended or after you void torrented, your next Void Form was kind of ruined, the one after that was kind of ruined. It was really hard to get back on track, and your damage suffered because of it. So it was kind of good in BFA that they're reducing the length of Void Form and the punishment of it. That said, they think they went a little bit too far with peeling power foot, which is resulting in Void Form not feeling impactful enough. We know enough reason work to extend it. They're easing the change back a bit. 100% true, Void Form as it stands in BFA right now felt pointless. It felt like this vehicle where all you got was 0.5% haste a second and access to Void Bolt, which really wasn't that good. So what they're doing to change it is they're increasing Void Form spell damage by 20% up from 10%. This is a nice change, and many of you people who are noobs like me would have thought that when you first go into Void Form, you gain 10% spell damage, because that's what the tooltip says. In reality, you lost Shadow Form, which also gave 10% spell damage, so you just trade 10% for 10%. Now, it works how I thought it did at first, where you gain 20% instead of 10%. So that's a good change. That's an overall buff to Shadow. Very happy to see it. It probably should have been like that to start with, ages ago, back in Legion even. Next, Insanity Drain increased per second, Void Form reduced by 15%. That's a very nice change. Our Void Forms felt a bit too short in BFA so far. This is going to result in, few stacks more per Void Form. Overall, an increase in our Void Form uptime, which comboed with the increased spell damage, that's just more damage. Great to see. Void Bolt Insanity Duration increased by 25%. If I remember right, Void Bolt is 16 Insanity right now, so 25% buffs it to 20. It's a nice change. Again, linked with the drain, it's going to help us fight it longer, which linked with the damage is going to result in more damage. Great to see those changes. They're definitely what some people are asking for. You can't complain about those. One thing I do want to mention is that these seem more to be focused on changing Shadow quality of life, like mechanically, rather than numbers tuning. So if/when nerfs happen, they reduce that damage a little bit to balance this out. Don't feel too bad. Right now, I don't think we deserve nerfs. I'm biased, obviously, but I think this change is going to bump us to upper middle, which I think is where Shadow should be. So we'll see where that goes. Just be prepared for that. Next up, Dispersion. Dispersion's damage reduction is being increased by 75% up from 60. We agree that because it comes with the penalty of not being able to cast spells, it deserves to be stronger. That's awesome. One of the things I've always felt is that it was kind of silly that an ability that silences us for 6 seconds is so comparatively weak compared to the other abilities where players can't play. So Turtle, complete immunity, Ice Block, complete immunity. Step in the right direction. I don't want to say Void Form's like, Dispersion's like OP. Underpowered. I'm happy with the buff. Let's just leave it at that. Additionally, it now increases movement speed by 50%. That's cool. But one thing that kind of annoys me a little bit about it is that it's a defensive cooldown, and now it's also our best mobility cooldown. That's more of a problem with Shadow as a whole rather than Dispersion, but I don't like the idea that our defensive is now an offensive talent, or can be used as an offensive talent. I think that's bad design, and I don't know what else I would do. I like having the movement speed, I don't want to lose that. I don't know what else I would do, but it's not a great thing. But it's nice to have it, I suppose. I just don't really like what it could cause. I don't like the idea that, I should use Dispersion to get to from point A to point B a little bit faster, and all of a sudden attack C is coming at me and I don't have dispersion, I die. I'm not really... It's an issue. Minor issue. Very minor. Next up, new talent Intangibility replaces Mania, which is similar to and far less popular in Body and Soul. Mania, I think, suffered because of the drain increase in the smaller void forms of BFA. It was a fun talent in Legion. If you go back to logs of Legion, around Tumasagoras and Taurus, everyone was swapping to Mania. I think it started with the Korean and Chinese priests, and then everyone started to pick it up, and everyone just got addicted to it. Unfortunately, in BFA, the drain kind of suffered. I would have liked them to try rather giving it base movement speed as well as insanity generation instead of just removing it straight out. And I also would have liked to try it out with the current reduction that we're getting, but I can understand why they decided to remove it. So what Intangibility does is it reduces dispersion cooldown by 25% and causes it to heal you for 50% of your maximum health over its duration. So essentially, we got our artifact ability, Thrive in the Shadows, as I think it's Thrive in the Shadows, whichever one heals. It's one of the two. From the Shadows or Thrive in the Shadows. I'm not sure which one. One's cooldown reduction, one's damage. Regardless, we got those two combined as a talent. Fine. I think it's more of a... I'm not really sure what role it fits, because Body and Soul is for movement, in my eyes, but for PvE and PvP. I would prefer Dispersion Heal be baseline. You know, what can you do really? It's good to have it back. I'm not sure how much I'll use it, but it's good to have it back. Next up, Shadow Form's physical damage reduction. Shadow Form's 10% physical damage reduction was intended to feel like a bonus to Shadow Form, but instead felt like a penalty of Void Form since you lose that defense to go into Void Form. I think this is a PvP focus change. Well, sorry, I don't think. I know it's PvP focus changed. An issue with Shadow in PvP right now is Shadow's really squishy without Edge of Insanity and Shadow Form. And what happened is that when you go into Void Form, you lose 30% physical damage reduction, essentially. Made Shadow really paper, and I think this change is going to be addressing that. So what they're doing is they're replacing a bonus from Shadow Form with Focus Will passive, which Holy and Disc already have, which causes melee abilities and attacks to reduce all damage taken by 15% for 8 seconds. This is an overall buff to Shadow survivability. Why? Because Shadow Form only affected physical damage, and Focus will proc off physical damage, and affect everything else as well. So overall, the buff to Shadow, I don't know if it will be enough to change the Edge of Insanity playstyle people play with right now. Maybe combined with the Void Form spell damage, it could be. We'll have to see what the good PvPers decide to do. Next, Hallucinations. It was a PvP talent. A lot of people didn't know it was. What it does is allows you successful Dispel Magic, Master Spell, Purify Disease, and Vampiric Embrace, and Powered Shield cast to generate 6 Insanity, which is the same amount as a global of Mind Flay. Mind Flay generates 12 over essentially 2 globals, 1 global, 6 Insanity. It's nice. I didn't know it affected Vampiric Embrace. That just shows how little I took the talent personally. This is a very nice change. One of my complaints with Vampiric Embrace was that it was on GCD and it was most strong during Void Form. It felt really bad to use a 0 Insanity cooldown during Void Form. So, nice to see a buff to it. Along with Body and Soul being indirectly buffed by Power Shield. Now we get our mobility without the cost of Void Form. It's a great change all around. It probably should have been baseline to begin with, but it's very good to have it now. This gives you more freedom to use your on global cooldown utility buttons, especially in Void Form, without incurring as much damage loss, since Insanity is constantly drained. So essentially what I just said, nice change, can't hate on that. Other talent adjustments worth mentioning. Mind Bomb and Psychic Scream now take 40% longer to break from damage. This one, I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's probably more of a PvP change than a PvE one, but looking at it from a Mythic Plus perspective, Psychic Scream taking 40% longer to break from damage probably won't be an issue at all, because it does kind of break instantly. But Psychic Scream tends to spread things out, so if they do, you know, spread a little bit, it could be a very, very big issue. Mind Bomb, I still don't think it's worth taking. It might make it function as, you know, kind of like a small, like, mini stun for, like, a little bit longer now. But you still give up Last Word or Psychic Horror for it. And Psychic Scream. And I just don't think that's worth taking anything less than a stun for. So Mind Bomb, still not worth taking, in my opinion, for Mythic Plus. Psychic Scream, we'll have to see how it affects it. I think it'll be okay though. Next up, Void Torrent generates 30 Insanity over its duration, increased 20% increased damage. Deals 20% increased damage. Additionally, no longer requires Void from the cast, so you can choose to use it on a priority damage target anytime. I like this change. I'm not sure how it'll affect whether or not we take Mindbender. I hope it makes it more of a situational talent. A big issue Shadow has had for a while is that we don't have any priority damage. We can't, there's no ad that spawns. We're like, oh cool, we can hit it. We can use Shadow Void and Void Bolt, and that's kind of it. This gives us another option, especially that doesn't require Void from the cast. Generates a lot of Insanity, does decent amount of damage. I'm pretty happy with this. We'll see where it can fit in. That's for like the nerds who do theorycraft to figure out. But I think I can see it having some use. Lingering Insanity fades every 3 seconds to every 2 seconds. Again, a buff to Lingering. I'm not really sure whether it'll make it worth taking over Mindbender, but I think that's the focus of these two buffs. They want to make Mindbender less popular without nerfing it, which I think is the right way to do things. Rather than make Mindbender worse, bring up the other ones. That's good design. I would have liked them to just buff the base haste gain for Void Form stack rather than buff Lingering, but again, I think their goal was to make Mindbender worse without actually nerfing Mindbender. So those are two good changes. We might have them to use at some point. Like Lingering seems like it'd be really good on, you know, multi-target stuff where you have more dots up that would benefit longer from the haste. It'd be cool. We'll see how things work out, I suppose. This next one is a change that, if you know me, you know I'm not super happy with. This is a buff to Surrender Madness. What they're doing is cooldown being reduced by 33%, so essentially dropping from 4 minutes to around 2.5. And its penalty duration is being reduced by 50%. So instead of 30 seconds of no insanity generation, it's now 15. Pretty sizable buff to it, to be honest. Again, I'm not sure if it'll make it worth taking. I personally hope it doesn't, but we'll have to see how things go. Again, I mentioned at the start, but it's important to remember that these are quality of life changes rather than specific number tuning buffs. We might see more buffs from here. I kind of doubt it, because I think these ones alone are somewhere around 10% buff, maybe more, maybe a little bit less, but they're big buffs alone. So it's more likely we see a nerf pulling us back a little bit. I'm pretty happy with where these put us, and we'll have to see where Blizzard decides to go from here. Expecting a small nerf, but I'm pretty sure this puts us upper middle, and I'm very happy to be there. So next up, I'm going to discuss some changes we got to our Azerite traits a few days ago. To preface, the thing to remember is that in 8.1, we gained an extra ring of Azerite traits, and that's going to result in us having access to 6 traits instead of only 3. I'm going to focus on Mythic Plus for the most part, at least in regards to these two, so keep that in mind. So we've got 4 changes. This one literally doesn't matter. It's a discipline change more than anything else. We have access to the trait, but you'll never take it, so ignore that. What we're interested in is Searing Dialogue, Thought Harvester, and Whispers of the Damned. So we'll start with Searing Dialogue. Searing Dialogue, it's probably our worst Azerite trait right now. I think that's pretty easy to say. What they've done is that it does the same amount of damage as it does now. It's fine, but it's gained an extra ability that it snares all targets hit by 30%. It's not clear to me whether or not this lingers. I haven't played the PTR yet, so I'm not really sure. From my first impressions, I think the slow needs to be higher. It needs to be 50%, but regardless, because we have 6 Azerite traits at our disposal, I think as far as Mythic Plus is concerned, having 1 Searing Dialogue for the slow is just a nice quality of life. You can't always guarantee you're going to have a mage in your group to slow it for you, so having it, it's nice. Next up, we got Thought Harvester. Thought Harvester has been reworked. No longer is it a cast of Vampiric Touch that greatly buffs your Shattered Void or Mind Blast damage. Instead, it's been given the Death Throes treatment, whereby it now does more damage on the dot, as well as having a secondary effect. Its secondary effect is that each time VT deals damage, you have a chance to increase the damage of your next Mind Seer within 20 seconds by 300%. That's pretty big. For my mates who have played the PTR, they've told me that it's about a 1.5 to 2 proc per minute ability. Pretty good. And also it's like a truck. One issue is that currently the proc goes away if you're mid-cast Mind Seer. So say you have 1 tick left and you get the proc, that 1 tick will do 300% more damage and the proc will be consumed. I assume at some point they will change it so the next cast Mind Seer, as it kind of says here, will be the buff rather than just the one that's in progress. I think that's more of a teething problem with the talent than anything else. Again, like Searing Dialogue, worth having at least one of these. I actually have to play around the talent to decide whether or not you need more, but that's a good quality, just have one. Next up, this was my favorite trait, as many of you might know, but unfortunately they've gutted it. What they've done is that instead of Void Bolt increasing damage to Shattered Void or Mind Blast by a number for 6 seconds, stacking it 6 times, they've made it do baseline about 1.5 stacks worth of damage, as well as generate 10, it's supposed to be 10 insanity on crit. I believe this part will stack along with this. That could be okay. There was some thought that this could work well with Chorus, but after seeing our notes we've got today and the increased Void Forms we have, Chorus will be too strong. So I'm expecting Chorus to be nerfed a little bit. My overall thoughts of this trait change is that I think it's a nerf overall. I don't think unreliable insanity generation is the way to go. I'm just really sad to see Whispers go. I know a few people didn't like it, but for me, I think it was our best trait. Obviously not numbers wise, but in terms of playstyle, it was my favorite trait. Sad to see it go. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked it, chuck us a like, subscribe, all that stuff. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about these changes. Do you think they're enough? Are you happy to see them? Is it worth the wait? Do we need more? If so, what areas? Just let me know your thoughts. We waited for a long time for these. I'm personally happy with them. Definitely a step in the right direction, a big step in the right direction. Saying a lot. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.